I, CeliaJames, am a true Federalist and a true Republican. Let me explain. A true Federalist cannot support the ratification of this Constitution. More federal power reduces individual rights, because liberty is the most important core democratic value. This Constitution reduces popular sovereignty, which demands that we citizens hold ultimate authority over public officials. This document falls short. More federal power reduces states' rights. Not only is individual sovereignty at risk, but so is state sovereignty. For example, legislative districts must be small enough and the number of districts large enough for the citizens to know and be familiar with their representatives. Not only does this hold our public officials accountable, but it leads to a greater patriotism, a love of one's country. More federal power squints towards monarchy. Don't forget, the founders knew what monarchy looked like. They had just defeated it in the Revolutionary War. No power to the federal government at the expense of state governments. The power to tax and print money without limit is dangerous. Like Mr. Jefferson believed, it is more important for local banks to provide loans to average people and farmers. And where does ability to print money stop, I ask you? The power to raise up an army, especially in peacetime, is dangerous. This Constitution gives too much military might to the federal government in the form of professional soldiers. At the same time, it weakens the state and local militias, made up of average citizens. Remember, a standing army doesn't mean the army is just standing around. The elasticity of this Constitution can be stretched towards tyranny. Separation of powers isn't good enough. Even though there is separation of powers, power never automatically flows to the individual. It's taken away from the individual a bit at a time. Like other anti-federalists believe, branches of the government must be separate and distinct because even partial overlap can weaken individual liberty. Further, the French political thinker Montesquieu asserted that the branches must aggressively push against each other to avoid tyranny. Or else, a nation may lose its liberties in a day and not miss them in a century. A Bill of Rights would at least help to preserve individual freedoms. For those Federalists who say we don't need a Bill of Rights, I say hogwash! Even most of the state constitutions have a Bill of Rights. The only way I would even think about ratifying this Constitution is if a Bill of Rights will be added. The necessary and proper clause gives Congress too much power. Hamilton, a Federalist, God bless his heart, argued that the first clause is implicit in the Constitution. If Congress is granted power, it must necessarily be able to draft laws that enable it to execute that power. But I say, who's to decide what's necessary and proper? One day, an imperial president might even force citizens to buy something they don't want to buy, like health insurance, and use supremacy and commerce clauses as justification. As for me, CeliaJames, I concur with Patrick Henry when he cries out, "Give me liberty or give me death!"